Syphilis is one of the most widespread sexually transmitted diseases, and at the same time, one of the most dangerous. For more than 5 centuries, humanity has been familiar with this terrible scourge. But even though modern medicine has learned to combat the disease, scientists still cannot provide a precise answer. How and where did syphilis originate? In 1495, the inhabitants of Europe encountered an unknown and strange disease. Its symptoms were as follows. First, purulent ulcers began to appear on intimate areas. Then, after some time, the disease affected the bones, tissues, and circulatory system. The disease transformed a person beyond recognition and eventually led to a slow and painful death. The first epidemic of the new disease began in the troops of the French King Charles VIII, who were besieging Naples, and then the diverse mercenaries of the king and the soldiers opposing him in the military coalition brought the new plague to their families, which spread across the continent within a few years. The French writer and historian Guy Breton noted possible causes of the emergence of syphilis. Some doctors said that it all started from a woman who got infected by a leper. Others claimed that it was a consequence of cannibalism and accused the soldiers of eating human flesh. Others believed that the cause was bestiality, sexual intercourse between a human and a horse infected with glanders. In 1530, the Venetian professor, physician and astronomer Girolamo Fracastoro published a work titled Syphilis, The History of the Gallic Disease. In it, he was the first to summarize the medical knowledge about this disease. He wrote his work in the form of a mythological poem, in which the swineherd Syphilis, who challenged the gods, was punished with this severe disease. It is worth noting that not only medieval scientists did not know how and where syphilis originated, specialists of our time also cannot answer this question with 100% certainty. However, they propose several theories. The American theory. Among American scientists, the most popular theory is that syphilis was brought to Europe from the New World by Columbus's sailors. The Soviet scientist Lev Gromashevsky believed that sailors could have contracted syphilis from local tribes, among whom bestiality was practiced. The American theory was also supported by the Spanish physician Diaz de Isla. He recorded episodes of a previously unknown disease in sailors returning from long voyages, which soon infected the residents of Barcelona. It is also known that 300 Spaniards, among whom there could have been syphilis patients, joined the ranks of King Charles VIII's army. This explains the outbreak of the disease in besieged Naples. The African version, the strain of Treponema discovered on the African continent, which is the causative agent of syphilis, could very well have migrated to the Old World from the depths of Africa. Its carriers could have been infected African slaves, who were brought in large numbers on trading ships. The European version. Some scientists believe that syphilis existed in Europe even in ancient times. They refer to the descriptions by Hippocrates, Galen, and Avicenna, which are similar to the symptoms of this disease. As a visible confirmation of the European roots of syphilis, art can serve as evidence. Thus, on the busts of Socrates in the museums of the Vatican and the Louvre, a typical syphilitic saddle nose stands out. But syphilis may be much older than we think. Specialists who studied the remains of people who lived in the Bronze Age discovered bone destruction, changes in teeth, and skulls characteristic of syphilis symptoms. Such remains have also been found in the territory of Russia. During archaeological excavations in the area of the former Khazar fortress Sarkal, syphilitic changes were found in 26 skeletons out of 294 burials from the 5th to 7th Theresan centuries. The main route of transmission for syphilis is sexual. Therefore, it is not surprising that the disease thrived in communities where moral standards were lacking. The army of King Charles VIII became a very favorable environment for the spread of this infection. In their campaign to Italy, the French acquired Naples and syphilis. Later, they were driven back and lost Naples, but syphilis remained with them. Mockingly, the French philosopher and satirist Voltaire joked about the soldiers. The consequences of the French troops' campaign in Italy were as follows. In the spring of 1496, a terrible epidemic of the Neapolitan disease struck Paris, and its effects were so disgusting and foul-smelling that people developed an aversion to sexual intercourse. Taking advantage of the situation, the Church began to vigorously preach chastity. Ladies, renowned for their fervour in bed games, flocked to the convent. King Charles VIII was in complete despair, as the most beautiful court ladies had become obedient nuns. Venues of venereal diseases such as syphilis were most often combated with measures on a state scale. Thus, according to the decree of Peter I, women leading a promiscuous lifestyle were placed in confinement houses. Under the threat of severe punishments, it was forbidden to keep disreputable wives and girls. But while Peter closed brothels, in the 19th century Russia began regulating prostitution. For these purposes, a commission was established in St. Petersburg in 1847 to oversee vagrant women. Historians have long noted that each outbreak of the syphilis epidemic always coincided with major military upheavals. Thus, peaks in syphilis cases occurred in the Italian Wars from 1494 to 1559, the Napoleonic Wars from 1799 to 1815, the First and Second World Wars. The first syphilis epidemic, which coincided with the Italian War, turned out to be the most extensive. It lasted until 1815. As well as during the First and Second World Wars, the first epidemic of syphilis, which coincided with the Italian War, turned out to be the largest in 1,000 years. By 1499, syphilis had reached Russia. Thanks to trade routes, by 1500, the disease had reached the east through the Mediterranean Sea. In less than a year, the populations of India, China, and then Japan were affected by syphilis. When the war with Napoleon ended and Paris was taken, the Russian military doctor Yakov Govarov noted, "With the capture of Paris, although the diseases caused by changes in air, labor, and lack of food ended, much more significant diseases emerged among the soldiers, from which perhaps more perished than from the war itself." With the start of World War I, Europe was overwhelmed by a powerful wave of the syphilis epidemic. According to statistics, nearly every seventh European was a carrier of the treponema strain. However, it was not only the world wars that contributed to the spread of syphilis. In defense of human weaknesses, one can refer to studies conducted by Soviet scientists, which proved that nature is largely to blame for the spread of venereal diseases. According to this viewpoint, peaks in syphilis cases coincide with periods of solar activity and last on average about 23 years. However, such hypotheses have not received proper support in the scientific community and remain just hypotheses.
Thanks for watching. Please click like. Bye.